The Great Erase, an Eli Marks curious mystery.
It was, as the saying goes, déjà vu all over again. My first day of school, again. At a new school, again. And here I sat in the principal's office, again. Although, to be honest, this time it was the vice principal's office. This high school, unlike the junior high from last year, was much larger. So, their principals apparently came in multiple sizes. In the chair next to me sat Simon Hartwell, who had become, through no real effort on my part, what my Uncle Harry would have called my nemesis. The first time Harry used that word, I had to go look it up. It means a long-standing rival. Although I'm not sure if all of 9th grade and the first day of 10th would be considered long-standing. But Simon definitely was not on my side. Ever. Okay, Eli, tell me what happened. This question came from Miss Forrest, the vice principal. She was stern, but I got the sense that was the face she put on in front of kids who got in fights. I was now part of that elite group. I had forgotten to write down the assignment for my math class, I began. So, I went back to the math room at the end of the day to copy it down. It was written on the blackboard. Simon followed me into the room. When he saw what I was trying to do, he grabbed the eraser and started erasing the assignment. I pushed him out of the way so I could still see the board. He pushed me back, and then I guess we started fighting. The vice principal looked at me for a long moment. Why did Simon follow you into the math room? I shrugged, glancing over at the smirking red-headed kid next to me. I don't know. Maybe because I sort of made him look foolish, last year, a couple of times. She looked at me for a long moment. I sensed she had more questions, but she must have set them aside because she then turned to Simon. And Simon, what is your version of events? Thank you, Miss Forrest, for the opportunity to present my side of the story, Simon began. Eli is not being truthful. I saw him in the empty classroom. I went in to say hi. Then, for no reason, he attacked me, slammed me up against the blackboard. I pushed back and we fell to the floor. That's when a teacher came in. I never touched the eraser. Miss Forrest looked from Simon to me and then back to Simon. Let's take a walk down to the math room, she said as she stood up. I followed the two of them out of the room, purposefully lagging behind because this school was so new to me that I wasn't entirely certain how to get to the math room from here. Fortunately, I wasn't the only one who was a bit phased and dazed by this first day of school. The influx of new 10th graders from various junior highs had created a new, puzzled subset within the school's larger student population. Like many others, I had spent much of this first day just trying to find my next classroom. Luckily, there had been one room that was easy to find: the lunchroom. That was because, when lunchtime came, that's where everyone was headed. So I just followed the crowd. I had been worried about eating a lonely lunch, so I was thrilled to find my friend Nathan almost right away. And he had found our other friend from junior high, Jake. Although Jake was our age, he had a lot more of what my Aunt Alice called charisma, and my Uncle Harry called moxie. Jake always seemed to be confident, regardless of the situation. Once we got our food, we were able to find a spot at a table in the corner. We were exchanging our thoughts about the new school and the new classes when two girls stopped by to say hi to Jake. Jake had done all the plays in junior high, as well as some community theater shows. It always felt like Jake knew everyone. He greeted the two giggly girls and said, "Welcome to the magician's table." With that, he picked up his styrofoam cup with both hands, and then slowly pulled his hands away. The cup seemed to float in midair between his hands. This produced an explosion of emotions from the two girls, who were still shrieking about the experience as they continued on their way. "How is this the magician's table?" I asked. "You're not a magician, not like Nathan, and me." "Hey, I just did a magic trick, didn't I?" Jake countered. "I think that makes me a magician." "Well, magicians don't reveal their secrets to the outside world," Nathan said slowly. Nathan said everything slowly. "But they do explain them to other magicians. How'd you do that trick?" The rest of our lunch was spent learning the secrets of the floating paper cup. It was so much fun, I almost forgot I was in school. As we passed the empty lunchroom on our way to the math room, I thought back on that trick and its clever secret. Miss Forrest was leading the way. Simon was a couple steps ahead of me. As I walked, I noticed Simon was wearing what was called a letter jacket. I understood this was a special jacket worn by athletes. His last name, Hartwell, was spelled out across the back of the brand new, pristine black fleece and leather jacket. I guess he bought the jacket in preparation for the day he actually earned a letter in some sport. Where did he get that confidence? It was like Jake at lunch today, just saying out of the blue, "Hey, I'm a magician." They both possessed a confidence that I clearly lacked. I had heard the expression, "fake it until you make it," and I guess that's what these guys were doing. If you pretend you are something, an athlete, a magician, you're halfway on your way to being that thing. Or something. It was a skill I had yet to develop. This train of thought came to a halt as Miss Forrest opened the door to the math room and gestured for Simon and me to go in. The room was the same as it had been minutes before when that teacher had broken up my short tussle with Simon. All the desks were in neat rows. A line of books was in a row in the windowsill. The teacher's desk was clear of any clutter. Only two things were askew in the room. The eraser I had knocked out of Simon's hand was on the floor, and the assignment on the blackboard was a smudgy mess, with only a few words still legible. "Tell me again what happened," Miss Forrest said sharply. "Eli, you first." "I was sitting at that desk in the front row," I said, pointing to the desk. "I had my notebook out and was copying down the assignment, and then Simon came in, grabbed the eraser and started erasing the words. I jumped up and knocked the eraser out of his hand. Then he pushed me and we started fighting." "I see," she said slowly. "Simon, what is your version?" "I came in to say hi because I'm a friendly guy," he said with a much larger grin than was required. "And for no reason, Eli attacked me. He ran over and slammed me against the blackboard. Of course I fought back. What choice did I have?" Miss Forrest looked from Simon to the blackboard and then back to him. "So you didn't erase the assignment?" "I did not," Simon said adamantly. "Anything that got erased is because Eli pushed me up against the blackboard. That's where the erasing happened. I never touched that eraser." He pointed at the eraser on the floor, as if its position somehow proved his point. For a long moment, Miss Forrest considered what she'd heard. "Well," she finally said, "this is really just Eli's word against Simon's. There's no way to prove who did what, so I think it will have to be detention for both of you." But, I stammered. "Look at the eraser. It's got chalk dust on it. It's the first day of school. The other erasers are clean, but that one has chalk dust on it. That proves Simon tried to erase the assignment." Miss Forrest shook her head sadly. "I'm sorry, Eli, but that doesn't prove your point. That's just circumstantial evidence." "That's right. It's circumstantial," Simon repeated. "Let's head back to the office and I'll write up those detention slips," she said as she began to move toward the door. I looked at the smudged blackboard, and at the eraser on the floor, and at Simon as he followed the vice principal to the door. And then the answer hit me. "Wait," I said, yelping a little louder than I'd intended. "I can prove that Simon erased that assignment."
How can Eli prove that Simon is lying?
The vice principal came to a stop in the doorway. "How can you prove that, Eli?" Miss Forrest asked. "Yeah, Marks, how can you prove it?" Simon said as he eyed me nervously. "Simon claims that he never touched the eraser, right?" I began. Miss Forrest nodded. Simon just sneered at me. "Instead, he says that I pushed him against the blackboard, and that's how the assignment got partially erased." "That's what I said," Simon grumbled. I picked the eraser up off the floor and gave it a flick. A small dust cloud rose up and then disappeared. "So, the chalk dust on this eraser wasn't from the assignment being erased?" I continued. "Obviously not," Simon snapped. "And you're saying any smudging on the blackboard was because I pushed you against it?" "You slammed me against it," Simon corrected. "Okay, in that case, there should be chalk dust on the back of your nice new letter jacket, right?" As I said this, I looked at Miss Forrest, and she looked at Simon. She gestured for him to turn around. Simon did what he was commanded, but at a super slow speed. But he was only delaying the inevitable. The back of his black letter jacket was pristine. Not a spot of dust, chalk or otherwise, was visible. "Any chance you want to change your story?" Miss Forrest said. Simon slowly nodded. "Fine, you can enlighten me as we head back to my office, where I'll write up your detention slip for fighting and for erasing an assignment off the board." She gestured toward the door and Simon headed out, his head held low. Miss Forrest turned to me as she left. "Have a nice night, Eli," she said brightly. "I hope I won't see you in my office again this year." "You and me both," I agreed. I was about to follow them out, then remembered I hadn't finished writing down the math assignment. Although it was tough to decipher, I think I got most of it down in my notebook before I headed home from yet another memorable first day of school.